I'm a lifelong AGC guy. He mentioned, and I'll have to shorten up that resume. This is my first trip to a state meeting, so I'll make sure we cut that down. But 72 is when I started painting buildings for our family construction business. And I got in a little bit of trouble because of the way I painted it and my work ethic, which hopefully has improved some over time. But I've been an AGC guy since before that, probably. One of my early memories of AGC was going to the Hotel del Coronado with my folks and some other North Dakotans, because obviously much better to be in San Diego in March than it is to be in Fargo in March. And in college, I remember driving over to the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco and having one whale of a good time. So AGC has always been a strong part of my life. And it's interesting that AGC has always had a very strong presence here in California as well as in Washington because of the leaders like you here in the room today. I remember Dick Hall of underground construction was one of the incoming presidents, and he encouraged me to be more engaged in national AGC. And his wife Betty and my wife Ellen started to kind of get along pretty well. So it's because of leaders like that AGC can continue on. And without the work of the AGC of California, what you did with your cardboard here, contractors all over the nation would be suffering the results of that regulation that, combined with the efforts of the AGC of America, we were able to at least postpone. So thank you very much. I'll tell you, we've never ever needed active members like we do today. And it's neat to see that a chapter like you is engaging the future workforce by doing the young constructors and the student chapter thing. When you talk about having 14 student chapters in the state, that's an accomplishment. The AGC of America is the only group in Washington that represents the needs of the entire construction industry. We aren't focused on just one sector of the construction industry. We deal with that long list of work that you mentioned, John, that my firm does, and many others. We also represent the interests of our associate members and our specialty and service providers. Similar to what I'm seeing from the presentation that was made about what you guys doing here in California. But these initiatives start with an economy that, as Steve indicated, is anything but healthy. Nationally, our unemployment rate is around 15%. That's down from 17%. I just got a news brief from Ken Simonson while we were in the lunch speaker. And it was interesting to hear Mr. Stark speak about what was going on with the illegal immigrant problem going away because of the lack of employment that they're leaving the country. The same thing is happening with the unemployment level in construction. At least I believe that to be a portion of the case. In 2010, we had 1,919,000 unemployed, and now we have about 1,156,000. So there's about 750,000 less unemployed in the construction industry, and yet we see that the economy isn't picking up nearly to that percentage. So I believe that what's happening is a lot of these former workers who were looking for work in the construction industry have either sought employment elsewhere or have retired from our work altogether. So that's going to be a challenge going forward. Construction material prices are rising, inflation continues to hit our inputs, but yet bid levels remain extremely low. Local and state construction spending is shrinking, and now that the stimulus money has been spent, we're seeing what Steve mentioned, where the federal government is looking to shrink their contribution to construction spending significantly. The 2012 budget includes about a 6% cut for federal building construction program, and last year, in response to this, AGC put out a pamphlet or a book called Building a Stronger Future, and this plan outlines a series of initiatives that are common sense measures, and unfortunately in Washington today, common sense measures don't seem to gain much traction. But regardless, we've distributed copies to all 535 members of the Senate and the House in the hopes that they may latch on to one or two of those initiatives and claim them as their own. Our needs go far beyond the poor national economy. We're struggling with what has to be one of the least business-friendly climates in Washington that I can remember. And it's kind of similar to what Steve explained when the question was why pick Romney over Obama. It's frightening when my safety director goes to a meeting with the OSHA people and they start the meeting by saying there's a new sheriff in town, and our method of raising revenue is going to be, instead of working proactively with contractors to minimize the risk to your employees, we're going to try and make this a source of revenue. On the other hand, it's great that Barack Obama embraces increased spending. He's a great cheerleader for, I mean, almost every speech has the words, let's invest in roads and bridges. But, and there are many who've said I'd rather have a market with poor regulations than no market at all. But I'd much rather have fewer regulations and less red tape than just a nice cheerleader and kind words any day. Steve and the entire AGC team are spending a lot of time educating federal officials about the importance of a collaborative approach to safety enforcement. We just were informed that the OSHA people are looking into backup accidents and their causes and are looking for comments from AGC members on how we can reduce the risks associated with backing up in work sites. And also they are seeking comments on installation of reinforcing steel. And that just came out today. So that's something that we're going to be looking for comments from AGC of California members and from members all over the country. Because as good as Steve and his team are, they need the help and the input of those of us who are real world practitioners of construction. Because it was comments from members like ourselves that helped AGC minimize the damage and the cost associated with the EPA rule that was going to be eliminated, and then the Sierra Club instituted a lawsuit that made sure that there would be a numeric limit that would, what we call a mud rule, which is in effect a rule that's designed to protect the earth from dirt. So we're working to kind of delay that, and it's thanks to thousands of members like us who, when the brilliant idea of raising funds or reducing a deficit on a short-term basis was to collect 3% of all of our earnings on any federally funded project, and that was turned back because of comments and emails and calls that were made by members like us. And it'll be because of calls from members like us that we can hopefully, not only on the state and local and county level, but on the federal level, get the Congress and the administration to act on long-delayed water, transportation, and energy investment legislation so that we can address the nearly trillion, or probably over $1 trillion infrastructure deficit. Make no mistake, Congress is not going to invest in infrastructure programs easily. The way it is in DC these days, we're fighting a tremendous headwind in an environment where doing nothing seems to be the rule as opposed to the exception. We have launched an extensive grassroots campaign, and grassroots campaigns do work, designed to make sure that members of Congress understand how important passing infrastructure legislation is, not only to the construction industry, but to the overall American economy. I'd ask each of you to go to www.agc.org. We don't have the -ca in ours, okay? /roads, and check out our suggestions on how you can make your voice heard in Washington. And it's a real easy way to do it. You can just touch the link and you're in contact with your 2 senators and your representative. And for the highway folks in the room, we have the TCC fly-in coming up at the end of May, with your Senator Boxer being in charge of the conference committee. It'll be an important time to be there. I understand that the Senate will be in recess during the TCC fly-in, but I'm hopeful that the conference committee may be in action while we're there. So it'll probably be a critical time. Despite all the challenges facing our industry, we've worked to continue to develop tools to help us grow as an association, as an industry. With the evolution of our industry, we're investing in educational programs. The Building to Lead for new construction is a full-day course that helps contractors deal with their role in green construction. Likewise, our Building Information Modeling Education Program and BIM Forum are making it easier for our firms to adapt and use the BIM processes. And we're also launching our first of its kind Lean Education Program, which is being developed in cooperation with the Lean Construction Institute. Starting next year, we're going to launch a new fall protection safety training program, which we've had in the past, and this is the result of the AGC group getting another Susan Harwood grant, which we've had in the past, but under the first couple of years of the new administration, we weren't awarded that. So hopefully we'll be able to concentrate more on fall protection training. At the same time, we're taking steps to make sure that the legal documents that bind contractors and owners continue to evolve with and keep pace with trends in our industry through development of the consensus docs. And that team is continually updating its inventory of template contracts to keep pace with changes in our industry. And we're also involving a huge coalition of partnering organizations. I think when the economy picks up, you'll find that you'd much rather be working under a consensus doc than any other document. We're also working hard to make sure that future generations of AGC members and of our industry become successful and sustainable contractors. It's imperative that we continue to remind students and Americans in general that the standard high school to college track isn't the only way to enter our workforce. We need to encourage the kind of school reforms that give more students the opportunity to succeed in class while learning real world skills. And we need more construction academies. I don't know how many you have in California, but they're expensive to develop, but they pay dividends. And when our economy snaps back, that's going to be one of the ways we can get workers involved in crafts, get them into our training programs, and get them into management roles. We need more charter schools focused on construction, and the involvement of the student chapters and the young constructors is another way we can make sure that our membership continues to be involved and engaged, and will continue the success of not only our industry but our association. None of this is going to happen by inertia alone. As good as our staff is in fighting for our industry's interests, will only ever be as strong as the members that are paying dues and doing the work, and how involved and active you are in our association. I'd like to conclude today by asking you each to stay involved, because I don't mean get involved, because you wouldn't be sitting here in Monterey in a windowless room had it not been that you were somewhat committed. If you don't know your members of Congress and Senate, get to know them, get involved. If you haven't been letting them know what you think about pending regulations and legislation, tell them. I'm here to tell you that I was invited to a deal with Barbara Boxer and was asked to write a check, and I had my wife do that, so we could continue to maintain relations. But it's what you got to be on the inside. You can't be on the outside of the tent. And so we heard at lunch today, your 120 club, is it? Yep. Give to your PAC, and AGC has the 535 club. If you haven't given yet, checks are still being accepted, and use this as your opportunity to be heard and respected, and, you know, if nothing else, maybe even feared a little bit. I learned a long time ago that people don't really care much about what one contractor thinks about something. But when we act as an entire industry, every once in a while we can maybe get them to listen. So thank you very much for inviting me to California. You've had great weather. It's been a great meeting. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate the opportunity to come to you and express some of my thoughts.